You lie to me, keep saying I'm your everything. Lie to me, act like you would do it.
Hi, so this is really different than what I would like to do. Normally I want to record makeup videos and like have little tutorials or whatever, but I kind of think maybe I should not only stick to makeup because, you know, there's so many things that go on in my life that I should really address or, you know, in this case talk about on camera. So today I want to do a story time, and I actually have like a lot of really good stories regarding a lot of different things. In this case today I want to talk about this guy who I kind of had a thing with like a year and a half ago, and the reason that I want to talk about it is because even like almost 2 years later, seeing him sometimes makes me feel upset, or I just remember what he did and I feel like absolute crap. So let's get started. By all means, I know that not all guys are jerks or would do this, but because, you know, there are some really great guys out there, like for real, but the guys that do this kind of stuff, honestly, I don't get them. I don't know what their game is. But anyway, let's get started. So a year and a half ago, I was in my first year in uni, and within like the first month, I had joined a extracurricular activity. I had a crush on this guy who, I mean, like, it was just like one of those crushes that, like, you know, you're like physically attracted to them, but that's about it. And I know it was gonna go away, but he basically invited everyone to his house for some kind of like get together and like to bond with the other people in that activity. And I'm not gonna say what activity it is because I just don't. Yeah, so he invited people over and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll go. So I show up to his house, and this is the guy that I had a crush on. I show up to his house and he opened the door and he was like, oh, hey, you're here. Like, everyone else was upstairs. And I was like, cool. So I head upstairs and there's this guy who was his roommate who was holding like a bottle of drinks, and he said to me, I have never actually talked to this guy before, but he turns to me and he says to me, oh, hey, you're Christina, right? And I was a little bit like, I don't know how this guy knows my name, but I'm a little bit worried because amongst those people at the time, I kind of had a reputation even before I came to them, because like a couple of years ago something happened between me and one of the guys in that extracurricular activity. So it's safe to say I kind of made my way around. So he was just like, oh, hey, yeah, you're Christina, just sit down, make yourself comfortable. And I was like, great. Okay, don't know how you know my name, but sure. So everyone's just like talking, getting to know each other the rest of the night, and it was pretty chill. We were there till like 4 or 5 in the morning. He actually, towards the end of the night, he like asked me like, oh, why did you join this particular activity? And I said, oh, because I made a pact with my friend that we would do it together, and she's not here tonight, but I promised her I would do it with her. So after that night, I think like a week later, I got a notification on Instagram that someone followed me, and I didn't recognize the name, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go take a look. So I look at his Instagram, and he's private, and he happens to be followed by one of the girls that I had met from this activity. So I was like, I didn't make the connection that maybe they knew each other. I just kind of thought, because it only said her, so I thought, okay, maybe it was just like a really random friend, but I requested to follow back because I thought I want to see who it is. Let's call him Joseph. When Joseph accepts the follow request, I look at it and I see his face, and I was like, what? And it was kind of weird. So I asked my friend who I joined this activity with, I was like, hey, did Joseph follow you on Instagram? And she was like, no, he doesn't even know who I am. And I was like, great, okay. And she kind of told me that maybe it's just nothing, it's probably nothing. And I was like, I don't know, because it was kind of weird. I'm not gonna say it was nothing, but I'm not gonna say it wasn't nothing. But I ignored it anyway, nonetheless. I think a week after that, there was like some kind of sporting event at my university. I guess like our club or society or activity or whatever like had to have a representative there. And I remember Joseph had messaged this group chat that we're all in, and he was like, oh, does anyone want to accompany me because this other girl couldn't make it? And I replied to it and I said, oh, how come she couldn't make it? And he said something about like, oh, she had something last minute so she can't make it. And I thought, should I go? The thing is, I didn't think this through, because on one hand I kind of wanted to hang out with him. I wanted to see if he was actually interested. So I told him that I would go with him, and he was like, okay, cool, see you like at the venue at like 8 o'clock. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go. My friend at the time, he had come with me, and we were talking, and I was telling him everything that happened. And he was like, oh yeah, you know what, I think he's kind of into you. And I was like, you haven't even met him yet, you know, maybe it's nothing, because I didn't want to like get my hopes up. So anyway, Joseph arrives finally, and my friend leaves because he had to do something, but it's just me and Joseph, and we're like talking and watching this like sporting event. And he starts asking me questions about me, you know, like, oh, like, how old are you, where are you from? Be clear, he doesn't know anything about me other than my name. So I tell him how old I am and stuff, and then when he asked me where I was from, I was kind of like, you know, right? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, you want to take a guess? And he, no joke, legit guessed every single country in Southeast Asia and Asia apart from Malaysia. So basically he was kind of like, oh, you can't be Malaysian because you don't look it. And I was like, okay. He guessed if I was Filipina, he guessed Indonesian. Indonesian is pretty close to Malaysia, so I don't know, maybe he just, I don't know, maybe he just thought literally everything but Malaysia. But then when he started getting into East Asia and said that I was like half Japanese, I guess some people have thought that before, but I mean, I haven't lived in Japan in like 3 years, so I don't know where he got that from. But eventually when I told him that I was Malaysian, he was like really surprised, and I was like, okay, this is weird. But as the rest of the night went on and we talked some more, it seemed like it was getting clearer to me that he actually was interested, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I think I started to flirt back a little bit as well, which I should not have done in hindsight. Like I think about it now and I'm like, well, that was dumb. At the end of the night, he was saying something about how he liked singing and he liked going for karaoke. So I said that the next time I go with my friends, I would invite him, because I kind of thought it was like a friendly thing, you know. I didn't think anything was weird about it, but he got really excited and he was like, oh yeah, sure, that sounds great. So I was like, okay, cool. I do this thing sometimes where it's so stupid, but it's like if I'm at a party and a guy that I think is kind of cute is like drinking something and I want to be coy and playful, I take his drink and I take a sip from it, and they usually find it really endearing, which by the way, I never really understood. I don't know why it's so cute. I kind of did the equivalent of that with this guy, where he was wearing a cap and I took the cap off his head and I put it on my head. And I don't know why, don't ask me why, I don't know why. But when I did that, he kind of looked at me with like this look that I've seen so many times before. Not to toot my own horn, but like I have seen it before, and I thought to myself, oh, well, crap. Then he had to leave because he like missed the bus, so he was like freaking sprinting to get on the bus, and he had forgotten that I was wearing his cap. How do you forget that someone's wearing a cap? I see him like the next day or like the day after that, and I was like, oh hey, by the way, I have your cap. And I didn't mean it by like, I don't know, I didn't mean anything by it. I was just saying like, well, by the way, if you were looking for it, I have it. And to be honest, I don't think you can forget that a specific girl who took your hat off your head is wearing it and then you forgot. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Then I was like, oh, when do you want it back? And he was just like, oh, any time is okay. And I said, yeah, are you sure? Because like I live pretty far. It's really not that far, it's still on campus, it's just that you have to go down a hill, and it's a long, like, people that don't live there, there's no point in going there, because it's like, why would you want to walk so far? I told him that, and I was like, are you sure? Because like I live pretty far. And then he was like, yeah, no, it's okay, just bring it anytime. And I was like, anytime? And he was like, yeah. And he looks like, no shit, he looks at me and he goes, yeah, because I'm gonna see you around, right? And it's such a simple thing to say, so I don't know why my mind interpreted it as like, wait, that was kind of weird, why did he say it like that? Then like he came over the weekend, I think that same weekend, he came to get his hat. And when he came to get his hat, he told me that he was, you know, interested in me. And I was like, oh, okay, so I was not crazy. Oh, my camera stopped recording. He came over the next day. Basically, he went from I'm interested in you, like to date you, to going I'm attracted to you. Maybe some people would just think that like, oh, that's a nice compliment, he's just calling you pretty. But I've been like in this situation so many different times before that I knew that when he said that, he was only looking for one thing. I, like, no joke, my heart kind of like sank to my stomach, because I mean that's pretty disappointing, you know. You think someone actually might be interested in getting to know you, and really they're not. and it sucks, and a lot of guys do this, and that, like, don't get me wrong, like, some girls do this as well, and it sucks in general. It's happened so often that when I think about it now, a year and a half later, I think I should have seen it coming, or maybe I did and I just didn't want to be right. So I did what any stupid girl would do, and I told him that I also felt the same way, which I didn't. I've had experiences where, like, if I do it, they leave me alone, and in those cases I don't want them to leave me alone. But in this specific case, I wanted this guy to leave me alone, and I don't know why I didn't kick him out of my dorm. I don't know why I didn't. I don't know, maybe I just felt like being stupid. You can imagine what happened, and by the way, very high-key worst of my life so far. Oh, it was bad. So the next week, he was being really, like, weird about it, even though he had told me that there's no weirdness between us, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, I don't know what he was expecting. Maybe he was expecting me to, like, chase after him or something, which I didn't. He started acting weird, and I thought, why are you acting weird? So I, like, pulled him aside a couple times, and I was like, hey, you're acting really weird. Did I do something? And he's just like, oh, no, we're fine. I'm like, are you sure? And he was just like, yeah. But then he kept doing it. I hate it when people, like, say things are fine and they're clearly not fine, and they act like it's not fine, but then they'll be like, oh yeah, no, it's no big deal, we're totally good. Like, no, we're not. We're clearly not. At the end of this 1 week, I decided to ask him to come to my place because I wanted to, like, clear some things up, because I think, like, there were things about him that reminded me of a relationship where I actually, like, felt happy. I made the mistake of thinking that maybe he was the same way, and I think a lot of people make that kind of mistake, which is bad, because it's like you end up putting yourself in a situation where you could get hurt worse than times before. And this is exactly what happened, because he was like 3 different past guys rolled into one in a really bad way. When I asked him to come over, he replied and said, sure, but by the way, I have a girlfriend. What? I was like, wait, what are you talking about? He basically just said, like, yeah, he has a girlfriend now, and I flipped out. Like, imagine you find out that you did it with someone and then they had a girlfriend the whole time, or a boyfriend. So I said to him, I was like, wait a second, were you freaking cheating on her with me and you didn't tell me until now? And he said, no. So she only, like, confessed to him or told him how she felt, like, about a week after me and him happened. And I mean, so he says. I don't really know how much I believe him, but I don't really want to think about it, because it's like, I think that would make the whole situation be worse, even like a year and a half later. So I was just like, okay, fine, whatever. I am not the kind of person that jumps at that opportunity, and I know a lot of people would, and it's awful. It's a terrible thing to do. I don't know why people would do that. It's so awful. When I did that, he kind of kept trying to reel me back in and trying to be like, oh, we can still, like, be friends and stuff though, and I'm like, that's not a thing. Like, that's really not a thing. And I never actually told him how I felt in terms of, like, the things he'd done, why they upset me so much. So he basically was trying to save his own ass and trying to be like, oh, we can talk. And eventually we did, and he told me that, like, he took a couple days to think about dating her because he didn't know what to do, and his excuse was that it's because he didn't know if he liked me either. I've heard it like 1,000 times, maybe even 1,000,000 times before. It's that's how often this kind of thing has happened to me, that I don't really believe people anymore. And I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's really hard when they do stuff like this. After we did talk, I kind of just put it away, because the last couple years with all the experiences I've had, it's kind of like, why would I cry over a guy? You know, it's just one of those things, like, you don't do it. And I think that was, like, low-key a mistake, me telling myself that, because I needed an outlet. In that case, crying, I think, was a good outlet, because the thing about what he did was that he, like, no warning whatsoever, suddenly one day he goes, oh, I have a girlfriend. And that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that he said, like, oh, even though I have a girlfriend, do you want to, like, get together again? Like, after he had said he had a girlfriend, he was like, by the way, can you call me? And I was like, what the fuck, why? And he said, oh, because my girlfriend goes through my messages. This girl has been dating a guy for a year and a half, and she has no idea, and it honestly makes me feel like shit, because I am, like, she obviously doesn't know, and I don't know her like a friend, so I can't tell her. So I call him and we talk and stuff, and then he was basically just like, oh yeah, like, we can, get together again. And I was like, no, you did not seriously just ask or just offer to cheat on your girlfriend with me? And he was like, what? No, he's basically trying to save his own ass again. But I told him no. And for weeks or maybe months on end, I actually wondered if I made the right decision. I would never do that willingly anyway, but in terms of making the right decision, I don't know if I should have like somehow told the girlfriend. And like some people told me that I should have. But the thing is, she's not someone I know, and she might like, I don't know, use that as reason to get revenge on me, and I just really don't need that kind of drama in my life. Plus, doing that in this case was bad at the point in time that I wanted to do it, because they were already dating quite a while when I wanted to do it, and other friends had advised me like, you know, if you like ruin their relationship, it's gonna be really bad for you as well, because like, you know, you gotta believe in karma. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, but what he did was not okay, which it totally wasn't. But basically he offered for me to be his side chick, and that felt so awful. It made me think, like, what kind of person asks another person, oh, you want to be like my side piece, my side dish, what do you call that? Side anything, really. And it really messed me up for a while, because there was a time that someone like had a thing with me, making me get invested in him, until I found out that he was still getting over his ex-girlfriend and he was using me as a way to get over her, and that felt great, really, honestly. These two situations were kind of similar in the sense that there was someone else, and it sucked. So like later on in the academic year, I confronted him again, and I was like, hey, look, what you did was not okay. And I finally told him how I felt. Basically, I was like, what you did was not okay. It made me feel guilty for something that I didn't even do, and you obviously haven't told her what you wanted to do. And he was just kind of like, but you and me happened a long time ago. And him saying all that, and he did say he was sorry, but it sucks. Every time I see him, that's what I think of, what he did. People have said if he wants to try and get with you in the future, he basically ruined his chances. And like, honestly, yeah, because there's no way in hell. And I feel like I need to knock on wood when I say this, because I feel like these situations always happen to me, because I always say, oh, I'm never gonna do this, I'm never gonna do that. But I don't want to be with someone like that, because that shit messes you up, like, for real, okay? No amount of drinking or whatever unhealthy coping habits you guys may have, it won't help with this kind of thing. You just kind of gotta let it, accept it, you know, accept it that something like this has happened to you. It doesn't have to be this exact situation, but something that has actually hurt your feelings. You gotta let yourself feel it, because otherwise it's just gonna be one of those things that you talk about in therapy 10 years later, I assume. So that's a story time. I apologize for not wearing a lot of makeup, or if this video went on really long. Well, those are two completely different things. But basically my eye has an infection, and I'm not allowed to wear eye makeup, so I literally only have on foundation, and my eyebrows are done, a little bit of blush, but that's about it. So yeah, I hope whoever is watching really enjoyed this video, and I will see you when I see you. Bye!